From a grown man crying after being tased to a pred arrested without underwear revealing his intent. 27 caught predators, 27 sting operations, 7 levels. Disclaimer. Level 1. Fake police officer predator. Known online as John Raven 2000, Michael Joseph Patterson became infamous after being caught in the Bowling Green, Kentucky investigation, a sting operation that formed part of NBC's To Catch a Predator series. Patterson wasn't just another suspect. He stood out because of how quickly and recklessly he acted. Within only 2 hours of first chatting online with someone he thought was a 13-year-old girl, he got into his car and started a 5-hour drive to what he thought was her home in Bowling Green. The entire trip, Patterson talked to the decoy over the phone to make sure the meeting would actually happen. However, during the call, he casually mentioned that he always carried a gun.
We just got off the phone with the guy who's claiming to be a cop. We don't know that he is, but he says he carries his gun everywhere with him.
That painted a whole new challenge for the Sting team. It was important to make sure Patterson was unarmed during the encounter, so they had the decoy instruct him to show on speaker that he wasn't armed before coming inside. The hungry Patterson followed the directions without question, so certain of what he was walking into. When he entered the decoy house, his demeanor was friendly, even overly pleased to be there. He complimented the furniture, acted relaxed, and introduced himself as a detective lieutenant. But all that was simply a facade meant to impress. Though it didn't buy him much time, as Chris Hansen walked out moments later asking him to explain why he had driven 5 hours to meet a minor. Patterson was shocked and stumbled through excuses, citing loneliness and his divorce as reasons for his actions.
Yeah, why were you here?
I'm just lonely. I don't have anybody and need somebody to talk to.
You knew she was 13, she told you, but you kept talking anyway.
I know. I'm sorry, sir.
It's funny.
As he tried stepping outside to leave, law enforcement was already waiting for him. An officer attempted to use a taser, but only one of its prongs connected, causing Patterson to bolt, screaming incoherently as he tried to get away.
I knew I screwed up talking to a girl that day.
His panicked cries would become among the most memorable moments of the Bowling Green operation. Once caught, he continued yelling, "Please, please, please help me, oh dear God," as if his shouts could undo what had already unfolded. Chris Hansen's acquaintance turned predator. It's not every day that someone walking into a Sting house immediately locks eyes with Chris Hansen, recognizes him, and especially blurts out, "No, Chris," in front of the cameras and stunned decoys. For Charles Lawrence of Fairfield, Connecticut, the weirdness only deepened by the fact he'd been a familiar face on Hansen's morning commute. At 60, he had built an ordinary life as an accountant, riding the train alongside the man now standing in front of him, clipboard in hand, ready to flip his world upside down.
Now I'm watching from the monitor, and something strikes me. He looks familiar. This is a fellow I had met on the commuter train. Knew his name. And here he is in our kitchen.
The moment Lawrence stepped into that living room, panic erupted. He barely made it through the doorway before spinning on his heel after recognizing the man standing in front of the cameras. He's desperate to escape. Yet before he could flee or make any attempt to talk his way out of the situation, cops caught up and hauled him out. At the police station, Lawrence tried to avoid the cameras, throwing a hoodie over his head, but there was no sidestepping what officers recovered during the search. In his car, police found evidence that further confirmed his real intention for answering the decoy's messages and making the drive into Fairfield.
What do you mean Chris Hansen on the kitchen? There's no way.
Is it your understanding you were going there to see and talk to a 13-year-old?
No. Okay.
The conversations leading up to his arrival had already set off alarms. Investigators recorded Lawrence making explicit offers and crude jokes over chat, reportedly telling the undercover decoy he could be a teacher and that he looked forward to their meeting. His attempt at damage control didn't work in court as well. When the case landed before a judge, Lawrence tried claiming he'd misread a text message, suggesting he thought he was meeting someone much older, but the judge didn't buy it, especially with the digital transcript in hand and evidence pulled from his car.
The problem you're going to have with your explanation is if you thought legitimately that the person was 18, at that point you're really alleviated of any concerns about dealing with a minor or anything like that.
Not true.
Lawrence entered a guilty plea to multiple felony charges and ultimately received a sentence of 2 years behind bars. The youngest unaired predator. Stephen Michael Holt is someone whose name stays mostly buried, emerging online through stings and podcasts that dissect his encounters with law enforcement in Flagler Beach, Florida investigation and the Greenville, Ohio operations. On paper, he nearly got swept up in the Ohio sting at only 18 after chatting with a decoy contributor named Susan. She played the part of a 13-year-old girl exchanging messages with Stephen. From the start, Holt insisted he'd treat girls nicely, always bringing things down to harmless-sounding games. He floated the idea of playing pool together, setting penalties like the winner getting a hug. Within moments, he was pushing to meet for movies. At that time, his chats were still somewhat in the gray area. However, fast forward less than a year, Holt's situation changed drastically. He's 19, living in South Florida, studying film in college, and his online chats now meet the criteria prosecutors look for. Holt seeks out Susan for another dialogue, never stopping at small talk. He passes for specifics on what types of underwear she's wearing, promising to teach her a variety of practices. Over the course of their chat, he escalates, even sending photos of his genitals.
And it's when you sent the pictures of your... So was that trying to scare her away?
I love that one.
The conversation slides into another territory, with Holt vowing to be the first, fixating on breaking boundaries. As those messages accumulate, there are no metaphors, no sugarcoating. It's direct, bold, and disturbing. The Flagler Beach investigation catches him just after his 19th birthday, old enough that prosecutors don't need to worry about technicalities. The conversations themselves, reviewed by contributor and investigators, show a methodical sequence. What makes the incident stand out is how quickly Holt moves from wanting to play harmless games to outright targeting her virginity. The Mickey Mouse Predator. Jeffrey Douglas Stacy stood out on To Catch a Predator not because of his face, but because of his almost childlike voice that made the scene even more uncomfortable for viewers.
I don't know. I really don't know. I thought she was 18.
The entire incident starts with Stacy chatting with a girl he thinks is named Sadie and rapidly diving into explicit territory. There isn't an ounce of hesitation before Stacy sends explicit photos and talks about graphic acts as casually as if they're weekend plans. Even after the girl clearly says she's 15, Stacy keeps chatting. When the man finally walks into the Sting house, he awkwardly stumbles a bit before sitting at the bar and waiting. Stacy tries to act normal, as if meeting any friend. However, moments later, when Chris Hansen steps out, Stacy freezes. His demeanor shifts and his voice goes unnaturally high when cornered. There's a discomfort and a strange sense of detachment, almost like he's rehearsing answers for a test he knows he's failed. But Hansen references the chat log, pointing out where Sadie repeatedly says she's underage. Stacy keeps trying to deny, saying he thought she was 18.
And how old is this girl you came here to meet?
I believe she's 18.
18?
Mm-hmm.
And what made you think she was 18?
Because I thought she said she was 18.
He tries to compose himself and says he's only drove to warn Sadie off, which rings hollow as Hansen presents more graphic content from their conversation. After the cameras cut away, authorities immediately arrest him. Stacy's legal outcome matched the gritty details exposed in the sting. Conviction followed for attempted unlawful conduct with someone underage, leading to a half-year jail term, probation, and 10 years as a registered offender. Level 2. Math Tutor Predator. Michael Mike Manzi isn't the person you'd expect to see walk into a police sting house in Fairfield, Connecticut. A trusted educator known by parents and a supposed knowledge enricher of the community, but failed miserably as he started interacting inappropriately with people who are the same age as their pupils. The cameras catch every moment as Manzi, a math tutor, shows up to meet a supposedly 13-year-old girl. It's almost off-putting how quickly nervousness takes over his face when the decoy keeps him talking, but before he could sense that something's off, Chris Hansen emerges from around the corner. Manzi doesn't bolt or scream, rather he sits there gripping the edges of his seat as Hansen starts questioning him. Just like a guilty man caught red-handed, he gives out every excuse in the book. Manzi says he was concerned for the girl's safety, that he was just checking to make sure everything was all right.
I just told you, I was coming here to make sure everything was okay. It really wasn't that far. I wanted to make sure that there was no obviously, she invited me in.
But something about an educator arriving to hang out with someone the age of the kids he tutors feels eerily disturbing. As the police move in, his composure starts cracking. The officers have to almost bring out a taser because Manzi doesn't listen.
You're gonna get tased.
Kneel down.
I'm gonna what? You're gonna
Kneel down.
I'm gonna get down. I'm gonna get down.
Kneel down.
I'm getting down.
All right.
He tries to stall but is shoved into an unmarked car. What makes this episode even more unsettling is what happens when he's booked at the station and waives his right to remain silent. He casually continued answering the detective's interrogation as if he was just there for a work interview. When pressed about his intent on bringing to the meetup, he carried on with the same demeanor, totally ignoring the gravity of what had just occurred. Role-playing chat room predator. Known as Freebird 72,000, David Wesley Schumacher Jr. made his appearance on the Fort Myers, Florida sting. From the moment he walked into the bait house, Schumacher tried to establish dominance, swaggering, flashing his bravado, tossing out gangster-infused one-liners, and acting like everything around him was beneath consideration. Schumacher had spent the previous days chatting with someone he thought was much younger than himself. He told her to not only come to a block party, but also to smoke and hang out overnight. David rolled his eyes at having been caught, instantly deflecting every direct question from Chris Hansen with slick talk.
Hey, why don't you have a seat right over there? Good, how are you? What's happening? Good. Hands up where I can see.
What's going on?
And this is where the episode loses any sense of safety for viewers. David claims it was all part of an elaborate role-playing chat room, throwing out words as if they could save him. During the entire confrontation, he was relentlessly nonchalant. When the gathered evidence came up, he avoided specifics and leaned deeper into denial, managing to spin blatant intent into just playing.
I'm trying to say it makes it look like you came here.
I didn't come here. I can't pick her up.
Sex with an underage girl.
We were in a role-playing chat room, dude.
And what role were you playing exactly here?
Anyone watching at home could feel their stomach churn as David threatened legal action against the sting, acting as if the entire operation was an overstep rather than a clear consequence of his own deeply disturbing online activity. Even years later, he never acknowledged the gravity of what had taken place and continues to defend himself. The Super Mario Predator. Using the online name Park and Ride 469, Timothy Isaac drew attention both for his unsettling online conduct and for his eerie resemblance to Mario, mustache, stocky frame and all.
It was late at night when he showed up, and he made no bones about what he wanted to do when he got there. The chat was very explicit.
Where are you at?
I have to go change out of my clothes, okay?
Okay.
At 42, Isaac's chats spiraled quickly. He contacted someone he believed was a girl aged 15, and what followed were conversations where he asked deeply personal questions, details about her intimate clothings like panties and thongs, pressing to know her preferences and whether she would keep their dialogue secret. He soon shifted into other taboo subjects, gauging whether the decoy would ever date someone his age.
Now, do you want to rethink that and tell the truth this time, or do you want to stick with that story?
Well, I kind of figured something was going on.
You did?
Yeah.
Isaac would later say he felt something was off, admitting a sense that the situation wasn't quite what it seemed. Still, despite feeling uneasy, he arrived at the Sting house in Greenville for the arranged meeting. And then, so did Chris Hansen. But when Isaac confronted Chris Hansen, he doubled down on his defense, trying to minimize his actions. He claimed he hadn't been totally sure of the decoy's age, acting if there was some confusion rather than a clear attempt to evade responsibility.
That's what she said on the phone.
That's what she said on the phone?
Yeah.
What did she say on the internet?
She said 15 or 16, but I said, no, you gotta be 18.
Really?
Yeah.
After the encounter, law enforcement took Isaac into custody. Media outlets, especially true crime podcasts and Dateline NBC, focused on the strange visual of Isaac's resemblance to a cartoon plumber, alongside the shocking details of his chat log. Let's go to jail. Mama's boy predator. Donald Leroy Morrison Jr. was a 48-year-old man living with his parents in Fort Myers, Florida. He was known for being unusually open about his past run-ins with the law, even discussing them freely during online chats. When he started talking to a decoy posing as a 15-year-old girl, the conversation was brief. Within less than 2 hours, he then straight out asked to meet her in person.
Morrison was one of those characters who, had it not been for the graphic nature of his online conversation with someone he thought was a young teenage girl, it would be comical.
Donald wasted no time getting the information about her hobbies and potential activities together, making it obvious that he was searching for something inappropriate. Even though he acknowledged that he struggled with some physical aspects, he continued to steer the conversation in a way that made it obvious what he was looking for. Morrison was welcomed to the Sting house with cookies and small talk, and he was made to feel as though nothing unusual had happened. Then Chris Hansen appeared, and the tone shifted.
What's going on?
I don't know, I just was talking to her and she said come down and visit her. I have a compulsion with for younger women, just meeting them.
What's ironic is that Morrison didn't try to hide his intentions. Instead, he openly admitted being obsessed with younger girls, and that he had connected with about a dozen people online. He mentioned a specific incident involving a girl from Michigan, saying he had taken pictures of her without her consent, and that her grandfather had wanted him charged. He lived with his parents, worked odd jobs, and seemed to have little to lose, but his willingness to talk about his past and his compulsion to seek out younger girls made his case especially unnerving.
Am I going to be arrested when I go out there?
That's not up to me.
Okay.
But you're free to go.
If you like diving into the internet's most disturbing cases, you should probably hit that subscribe button so you never miss another video. Now let's go deeper into this disturbing iceberg. Level 3. The MBA Predator. Abhilash Bhaskaran's name instantly sparks conversation in the To Catch a Predator community, mostly because of his infamous catchphrase. He was caught during an online exchange with someone he thought was a 13-year-old decoy named Amy. Abhilash was 34, married, and occupied a high-ranking role as Director of Software Development. It wasn't just any company either. He ran teams for a major player in the tech world, keeping up the facade of a normal working professional, all the while logging on to chat rooms with plans nobody expects from a person with an MBA and a reputation for being good in studies. Starting off with small talk, he dove straight into the kind of language that tends to raise red flags, dropping hints about what could happen and admitting things that sounded almost like confessions to law enforcement. Before the chat even ended, he commented on the massive risk involved, making it clear he knew the consequences waiting around the corner. Still, he showed up to the Sting house. The moments before he walked through the door almost seemed like they belonged in a business conference. He made casual conversation about work, kept his nerves hidden behind polite exchanges, and acted as though the evening was a simple meetup. The moment Chris Hansen stepped into the room, everything shifted. Abhilash tried to stay calm, but as Hansen pressed for answers, his discomfort became clear. The infamous line, "For I am not coming," was his flimsy attempt at distancing himself from the gravity of what he'd said earlier, but instead became a punchline for viewers and a kind of accidental legacy in internet history.
And why did you think it was okay at the age of 34 to come visit a 13-year-old girl home alone?
I said, it is for I am not coming.
For you are not coming?
Yeah, so I'll just make a good friend.
The case didn't close with the broadcast, though. After being caught and charged, Abhilash vanished before his prosecution could be finished. News spread through community forums, podcasts, and Reddit threads, with users tracking rumors and sightings from Georgia all the way overseas to India, where he was believed to be hiding. Factory worker predator. John Wesley Elliott, using the screen name Bald Beaver Hunter 42025, is one of the most vulgar and explicit usernames ever featured on the show. He spends weeks chatting with someone he believes is much younger, sending increasingly explicit messages and photos that make his intent clear from the beginning. Elliott makes the drive out to the Sting house on a Saturday as if it's just another casual meetup. He asks to use the bathroom when he first arrives, compliments the decoy on her looks, and tries to play off his messages as if nothing about them is alarming whatsoever. But what makes things bizarre is when Chris Hansen enters the room. Instead of reacting with panic or regret, Elliott goes quiet and seems to genuinely think Hansen is a therapist, even telling him,
"I could tell you're a therapist, I know.
You think I'm a therapist?
Yeah, by the way you're...
So you think that you came over here to meet this girl and magically a therapist sat down to help you through your problem?"
The look on his face isn't fear, it's confused confidence, which creates a layer of discomfort that goes beyond any normal confrontation. He's not just scrambling for an excuse, it's as though he's recalibrating his reality in real time, unable to process the gravity of what's about to happen. Instead of coming clean, Elliott deflects, stares at the ground, and keeps looking to Hansen to somehow offer a way out, talking about a failing marriage and a bad job at the factory, and says he only planned on... The entire moment is so notorious because it feels less like watching someone get caught and more like witnessing genuine delusion, where Elliott never really admits what he's there for, clinging to any explanation that can get him through the conversation. The moist predator. Ernest Clayton Timmons stands out as one of the most unsettling confrontations in the Ocean County, New Jersey investigation of To Catch a Predator. He was a technical sergeant in the United States Air Force, and his position alone raised eyebrows when he walked through the Sting house's door. The chat logs revealed a 33-year-old mechanic using the handle Jokader34 who wanted to meet a girl he thought was much younger. He had made no secret of his intentions during their conversations online, even requesting photos that would make most people recoil, shifting quickly from chit-chat to more targeted requests. Timmons tried appearing casual, telling the decoy he couldn't stay for long. However, when Chris Hansen emerged, Timmons immediately began sweating through his shirt and looked visibly nervous. It gets especially disturbing when he starts spinning a story about a mysterious man named Kevin from his airbase, insisting that he was set up and only came because Kevin had coerced him, trying to shift the blame entirely.
Do you see why this does not make sense?
Yes, sir. I perfectly. Why do you think I'm just as stunned as you are?
Well, you're stunned because you got caught. That's why you're stunned.
Because I think you're telling a big fat lie to me right now.
I'm not telling you a lie, sir.
It doesn't make sense.
I know.
He continued trying to build his own story as liters of sweat continued pouring down from his body, and later tried to flee mid-conversation. But despite all his attempts, the police force eventually took him out. He then appeared in front of the judge, who set his bail at $50,000. Former mail carrier predator. John Michael Dupuy, a 43-year-old from Norfolk, Connecticut, insisted the decoys call him Boo, while he reciprocated with baby, terms that are jarring given the context and the nature of their supposed relationship. John had worked as a UPS package handler before, but what really catches attention is Dupuy's pitiful arrival at the Sting house. Snacks in hand, he walks in with the expectation of intimacy. But things quickly get unsettling when John moves in for a hug, which appears innocent until you see the decoy's obvious discomfort.
So what do you want to do?
A hug?
I don't know.
These are not the actions of someone innocently dropping by for a football game. Instead of taking the hint and backing away, he lingers, testing the boundaries. Chris Hansen's entrance into the scene is typically abrupt but necessary. Chris laid out almost immediately Chris's graphic exchanges with the decoy. Confronted, Dupuy tried to deny the reality of his situation. Dupuy's assertion that all he wanted to do was hang out and watch football is clearly untrue, especially when his current denials are displayed alongside his explicit messages recorded on the chat logs.
You tell her, I would love to be the first guy to make you if you wanted me to, and I wanted to.
But ultimately, being in a pinch, he says he's sorry and his face says it all. He stood up and left for the door, only to see the cops waiting to deliver him to jail. Religious predator. Matthew Clifton Cogburn came online calling himself SentGagai04 and Talmot, curating a persona that was almost cartoonishly religious. With Bible quotes woven through nearly every message, he approached with the conviction of a street preacher, but ironically let go of any facade of restraint. From the first exchange with whom he thought was a teenage girl, Cogburn swerved straight into territory that left virtually no boundaries, pushing past typical small talk to probe matters that, in his mind, were necessary precautions to their meeting. Once inside the Sting house, Cogburn probably figured the show would be a quick exchange, but when he faced Chris Hansen, things flipped fast.
Cogburn immediately recognizes me, who had seen previous To Catch a Predator investigations, and had shown up and stayed and chatted anyway.
Presented with transcripts showing his conversations, Cogburn offered up a piece of advice that's as bizarre as it is telling. Keep your jeans in your jeans. It's delivered almost like a church camp slogan, but it's still not enough to undo what he did.
I've been in I'm not gonna say a mental struggle, but I didn't solely deep down I didn't have any intentions to do anything, and this is my punishment.
Chris even mentioned it even took him a few minutes to figure out what he meant. DNA matter and keep it in your pants. In the end, Cogburn was arrested and sentenced to 4 years in jail. Level 4. Teacher Predator. Using the screen name Stan Emac 12, Stanley Kendall appeared on Dateline NBC's To Catch a Predator in one of the most unsettling encounters from the series. 54 at the time, Stanley's conversations with a justice decoy posing as a young teen took a fast nosedive into territory that crossed every line. He sent an explicit image of himself to the decoy and asked for a similar photo in return. The chat logs from November 1st, 2006 paint a chilling picture of a man breaking serious boundaries, mentioning exactly what he wanted from the supposed 13-year-old just for his own gratification. When he arrived at the Sting house in Petaluma on November 2nd, expecting to meet his young prey, he was greeted by the decoy at the door, and within moments upon entering the Sting house, Chris Hansen came out with printed logs in hand. The man is shocked and begins insisting that this was the first incident of this kind for him.
And why would somebody try to do a setup like
To catch people that shouldn't be talking to teenagers.
people like you?
No, this is the first time I've done this.
The first time.
When asked directly about his work, Stanley mentions how he teaches junior high math, clarifying he is responsible for grades 6 through 8. However, this information only intensifies the questioning, and Chris doesn't hold back when pointing out how the age range of his students matches the online persona Stanley targeted.
I teach math.
And what grade do you teach?
6th, 7th, and 8th.
So you teach kids who are about the same age
as the boy you thought you were going to visit tonight? That raises an obvious question.
Throughout the interview, Stanley cycles between apology and deflection. He claims he's never shown up to an encounter like this before and stresses that he's had no prior meetings of this sort with anyone. He says multiple times that his job means a lot to him, remarking, "I'm an excellent teacher," in a shaky voice, as if his professional status could shift the situation.
For the record, I'm very nervous. This can ruin me. I don't want to lose my job. I'm an excellent teacher. My principal's going to be so shocked.
He's led outside after the sit-down, apologizing repeatedly and declaring that he'll never return to online chat rooms. Police confront and arrest him moments after he exits the house. The Undertaker Predator. Vincent M. Ambrosio's case sits near the bottom of what To Catch a Predator will air because the details are that bleak. At just 19, he drove out to Wappinger Falls, New York, over an hour away to Connecticut, where he thought a 12-year-old girl was waiting for him. The drive wasn't impulsive. In the days before, Ambrosio had sent the decoy messages, explicit in nature, along with highly inappropriate photos of himself. His plan was to meet her at her parents' house with the intent to watch TV together. At least, that's how he tried to frame it when caught.
I'm sorry. We have all day. Sorry, I'm really nervous.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
It's the sting itself that stands out. The footage wasn't aired with the original batch of episodes. Producers shelved it due to his mental state. But when it finally surfaced, Ambrosio's collapse before Chris Hansen was so raw that it put even other infamous confrontations in the shade. He was dressed in his signature cowboy outfit, which he'd apparently taken to wearing despite knowing it made him a spectacle. When Chris Hansen walked in, Ambrosio broke instantly. He teared up, then unraveled, confessing to a spiral of loneliness, medication that wasn't working, dropping out of school, caring for a dying relative, and feeling like everything in his life was circling the drain. He received a sentence of 30 months out of a possible 10-year term, with the remainder suspended. He was then required to register as an offender. Calling Card Predator. Under his Yahoo nickname TacTex2005 Brighton, Timothy Knowles' name came to fame on To Catch a Predator for reasons that are both ordinary in this context and yet uniquely memorable.
First, he asks to see his chest and stomach.
There.
How much more can I see?
On cam? That's it.
In the infamous Murphy, Texas sting, Knowles, who was 35 at the time, entered the house expecting to meet someone he thought was a 13-year-old. He struck up a conversation with the decoy immediately, showing no hesitation. This quick rapport left little to the imagination about what his intentions were supposed to be. He then started looking around, seemingly suspicious, and asking aloud if anyone else was present.
Since Mighty Boy was getting suspicious, it was time for him to meet me. How you doing?
Good.
And why did you come here tonight?
I was gonna play pool, actually.
Play pool?
Yeah.
Chris Hansen entered not long after, bringing that signature disarming confidence that usually signals the end of the road for visitors in these stings. Knowles' reaction was unusually casual. He said he was just there to play pool, barely attempting to lie convincingly. When Chris pointed out that Knowles had lied about his age, he'd claimed to be 26 in the chat. Knowles didn't argue. He just admitted his real age with a laugh, giving up on any cover story. Then came the moment that would turn his sting segment into a talking point for years. Chris produced a printout of the explicit image Knowles had sent and, without missing a beat, asked why on earth he would send that to a young teenager.
What kind of pool game would you use this for?
I wouldn't use that for a pool game.
Why would you send it to someone who said they were a 13-year-old boy?
I send it to everybody.
So it's like your calling card, you send a picture of your job to everyone you meet?
Knowles, with a strange laugh, replied that he sent that sort of thing to everyone. It was at that moment Chris deadpanned, "So that's your calling card?" Knowles again didn't seem bothered, only acknowledging it with a shrug. Up until the end, Knowles acted like he doesn't know Chris Hansen, that Chris even had to explain that he is now on the To Catch a Predator show. When he left in the middle of the conversation and reached out to open the front door, the police emerged, and that's when it dawned on him that he did something bad, and he was gonna have a bad time. Predator who admitted to having sexual experience with minors. He was 32 at the time when James David Marcotte, known online as JD Mar 74, was involved in direct online conversations with someone he thought was a 13-year-old girl during the Ocean County, New Jersey edition of To Catch a Predator. The chat started with probing questions, notably Marcotte asking whether the decoy had ever been intimate before.
So, did you bring the condoms?
Yes.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Alright, cool. Like, remember you said about that 15-year-old you had sex with?
Uh-huh.
Was she a virgin?
No.
No, she wasn't?
There was no small talk, no chit-chat, just straight into words that instantly raised red flags. It's a rare situation when a sting operation barely needs to set the trap. Marcotte basically runs toward it, documenting his own intentions. When Marcotte makes his way to the meeting spot, a beach close to the sting house, he isn't lost or confused. He's driven there for 90 minutes, determined. The place isn't where he expects the decoy to be waiting, but instead is the site where Chris Hansen steps out, clipboard and camera rolling, breaking the quiet tension with cold, hard questioning.
What's happening?
You good?
You good? What are you up to?
Just sitting here relaxing.
Relaxing?
Relaxing, having a chat.
Yeah. I think you already had a chat earlier today online, didn't you?
Marcotte's responses keep circling back to those admissions. He doesn't stutter or try to run when confronted. He just sits, looking down, tone of voice low and eerily natural, putting everyone on edge. One part that stands out is Marcotte's willingness to openly admit, not just during the chats, but also in his recorded interview, that he had already crossed such boundaries in real life. He doesn't try to skirt around the truth or minimize what he did with a 15-year-old in the past. He admits it almost flatly, as if he expects it to be a minor detail. This admission devastates the typical script followed by most perpetrators, where denials, avoidance, and excuses clutter the air.
You watch much TV, James?
A little bit.
A little bit. I'm Chris Hansen with Dateline NBC, and we're doing a story called To Catch a Predator.
Instead, Marcotte's manner sinks into a deafening silence, with his demeanor described by Chris Hansen and others as both quiet and disturbing. Rich and successful predator. Timothy Gilliam built a reputation as a successful businessman, owning several McDonald's franchises in New Jersey and married with 2 young kids. The double life he led came crashing down during the Ocean County, New Jersey sting. Gilliam, aged 32 at the time, initiated contact online with someone he thought was a 14-year-old girl, not realizing she was an undercover decoy. Gilliam's conversations went far beyond harmless chatting. Though his actual chat log isn't publicly available, there's corroboration about the nature of his dialogue. He was persistent in making the exchange explicit, asking about acts typically reserved for adults, and offering to teach her things, including how to achieve pleasure. He also sent provocative photos and repeatedly exposed himself on webcam, seeking affirmation and escalating the conversation. Gilliam soon decided to meet in person, pulling up to the sting house in his Lincoln Mark LT with both children in tow.
And asks several times if he could teach the girl, who he thinks is 14, how to masturbate.
Gilliam showcased a chilling disregard for the gravity of the situation. Instead of coming inside to meet the decoy, his plan shifted. Gilliam tried pitching the idea of installing a webcam on site, suggesting he could monitor remotely. But when the decoy insisted that Gilliam should come inside, he stalled and ultimately refused and stayed in his car.
Instead, he comes up with a plan he seems to think will keep him out of trouble. He's going to drive to Caitlin Spencer's house and give her a webcam.
He continued his attempts to lure the decoy out and came up with excuses. But eventually, sensing something was off, or maybe simply losing his nerve, Gilliam drove away. Police followed, quickly detaining him and ensuring his children were taken into custody safely. Level 5. Homosexual predator. Anthony Palumbo, at 46 years old, entered an online chat room looking for a connection and instead became wrapped up in one of the most unsettling televised investigations ever put before the public. Using the name Hi Buddy Was Up, he started messaging someone. They suggested bringing alcohol, telling Chris not to drink so he wouldn't get drunk. That detail stuck out. The matter-of-fact way Palumbo raised this, as if he were just being considerate. When the moment of the meet drew near, he left New York for a decoy home in New Jersey, beer in hand, ready to see things through. The initial awkwardness when he arrived didn't keep him from trying to go forward with the encounter. As soon as the door opened, TV cameras and Chris Hansen were waiting inside. Palumbo's nervousness bubbled over as he repeatedly declared he was stupid, almost as if saying it could undo what led him there.
Why do that? What's the motive here? Explain it to me. I don't understand.
You're right. No, you're right. It's stupid.
It's an illegal thing.
Yeah, I know. I did a stupid thing.
The encounter, when aired on NBC's Dateline, became notorious not only for Palumbo's strange demeanor, but for the sheer bluntness of his chat log. The outcome was swift. Police were waiting outside, and his arrest was almost immediate. Legal proceedings found him guilty of a felony charge, attempting to endanger the welfare of a child, leading to a sentence of lifetime parole supervision. The longest chat log ever recorded in To Catch a Predator. Lorne Armstrong was just getting settled in Nashville, Tennessee when his online handle first crossed paths with Kayla Princess 94, a screen name crafted by a decoy for the Bowling Green, Kentucky sting. Lorne's first move was classic misdirection, a line about being a good guy, someone who could be trusted. If nobody will talk to you, sweetheart, you can talk to me. I'm a good guy. I have 2 nieces your age. He wanted to paint himself as a protector, someone above suspicion. But as the chat picked up speed, his tone shifted. He zeroed in on the decoy's lack of online awareness. He told her outright that there are a lot of weirdos out there and that she's lucky to be talking to him instead. Over a month, the chat log ballooned to hundreds of pages. Lorne's interactions wove together forced intimacy and a false sense of safety. When Lorne finally drove to Bowling Green, it wasn't just any day, it was his 37th birthday. He walked up to the Sting house thinking he was about to meet someone much younger than himself. He entered calmly, comfortably, even grinning as he met the decoy. Sitting in a massage chair, he turned up the charm, repeatedly asking Cassie for a kiss to kick off the night. But instead, the night would be kicked off with Chris Hansen walking in, turning the entire situation upside down.
What do you think ought to happen to you?
I think I should go to counseling to get off the internet. I can do some things I can't do that. Go on.
At the sight of Hansen and the television cameras, Lorne's composure dissolved. No fight, no denial, just a cry that would become a kind of grim joke in the internet corners that track these stories. Oh, God! He was arrested outside with the reality of the sting and his actions finally hitting. General Manager Predator. When To Catch a Predator ended, Chris Hansen moved on to a new show with the same premise titled Hansen vs. Predator. Jesse Velez had been working as a general manager for a prominent sandwich chain, often trusted with responsibility and oversight that came with leading a large restaurant team. But what unfolded in Fairfield, Connecticut exposed a side of Velez that was different from his professional life. It began when Velez initiated a conversation online with someone he believed to be 12 years old, going by the name Jason and saying he'd be turning 13 soon. Within just minutes, Velez steered the chat into explicit territory, asking if the supposed child had revealing photos and pressuring for more. The middle schooler decoy told Velez where he studied, and Velez wasted no time offering to pick him up after classes. But the proposal wasn't just a ride home. Velez made it conditional. He wanted the boy to perform a specific act on him while he drove. Even beyond that, Velez proposed the idea of the child living with him instead. At one point, Velez sent a photo of his explicitly requesting the same from the person he thought was Jason. For the decoy, giving out an address was the culmination of the chat, and Velez agreed to come meet the child. The door opened on Fairfield's sting house and Velez stepped inside, met not with a teenager, but with Chris Hansen and cameramen. Hansen presented Velez's own words and showed the explicit photo, a moment that saw Velez recoil, acting shocked as if the images were offensive to him. The contradiction was immediate. He denied responsibility, tried to talk his way out, claiming disgust at something he himself had sent.
Oh my God, I did not know I even sent that. Ugh. Yeah, I did not know that.
Who was right?
Yeah, usually when I send a picture, like I have a bunch of pictures of me.
Right.
So I must have hit that, but I didn't really know why.
So this was just one big mistake?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
In the end, Velez is charged with 3 felonies, later pleading guilty to 2. Attempted risk of injury to a minor and enticing a minor by computer. He's then required to register as a sex offender for 10 years. Traveled a long distance just to meet an underage boy. Just how far will one go to do their dirty little secret? Jean-Pierre Michael Wirey's appearance during the Riverside, California sting of To Catch a Predator is one for the books, not just because of what he did after arriving, but the journey it took to get there. Wirey's commitment to this meeting went beyond what most others have ever demonstrated. Unlike others who drove or took a short cab ride, he endured an exhausting cross-state trip, taking 3 different buses and walking for 5 hours just to make it to the decoy house. The actual confrontation in the house becomes even more harrowing to watch. As Chris Hansen emerges, Wirey doesn't bolt or break down. Instead, he begins nervously licking his lips and weaving an increasingly odd story to explain why he's there at all. There's no rational explanation to be found in his words, and he delivers his excuses while maintaining unblinking, almost challenging eye contact with Hansen.
Yeah, I don't know,
But
who,
it doesn't
I don't
make
know
sense.
who you are. I don't even know who you are. I came in here, I was just now told that gate's open, come on in, okay?
Throughout, there's a sense of someone desperately clinging to the hope that he can talk his way out. A hope undermined by just how little sense his story makes. Prior to this sting operation, he was already on active parole and already a registered sex offender, leading to Hansen saying he knocks on someone's door, and thankfully, it was ours. Level 6. The only predator who showed up on To Catch a Predator for an 11-year-old girl. Robert Curtis Williams, sometimes called Brandon Williams, got a spotlight on the Long Beach, California edition of To Catch a Predator. Williams didn't just chat online, he went much further, zeroing in on a decoy who said she was just 11. This made her the youngest in any sting Chris Hansen's crew set up, which is a detail that still turns heads years later.
You said you got busted the other day?
Yeah, my grandmother got so mad at me. She's like, what were you doing? I tried to call you.
At the time, Williams was 26, driving trucks and living in Southern California, and chatting with this decoy while the sting operation was getting ready in the background. He sent her a webcam invite, and the video showed him in the act right there in front of the camera. Even knowing exactly how young this person claimed to be, he drove forward with talks about keeping her as his secret and trying to set up something more.
26-year-old Robert Williams is thinking about coming inside.
Are you coming? Hey, come on in. I made a couple drinks.
Williams then also started asking for pictures, making the whole exchange even more unsettling. Height didn't escape the lies either. He boasted about being 6'6" while he was, in reality, 5'10". That move is trivial compared to the real story. He didn't even pause when it came to knowing her supposed age. The messages shifted from talk about girlfriends, secrecy, and more to suggesting that she help him with what he was doing on camera if they ever met in person. These kinds of sting operations are no stranger to people turning out much older than what they promise in conversation, or making requests that would have made the average viewer of NBC's Dateline shift uncomfortably in their seat.
Please put your hands up. Bobby, please put your hands up. Down to your knees right now.
But Williams' case stands out most for how quickly he shed any sense of caution while knowing how young his target was. Oil drilling consultant predator. There are few stories from the sting operations that are as notorious as those involving Randall Wolford, whose name stands out not just for what he did, but for how he kept showing up in these operations, and each time with equally disturbing motivations. Wolford's history wasn't unknown by the time Chris Hansen's team set up in Murphy, Texas. Prior charges, some involving women and children, had apparently rolled off him with few lasting consequences. What made him so infamous was not just the shocking pattern, but how he managed to slip through the cracks and show up again for follow-up operations, seemingly undeterred and entirely willing to engage in the same activity that had gotten him in trouble before.
He says he wants to go to lunch and a movie with Sequoia, a girl who tells him she's 13. The next day, his intentions go from creepy to...
Wolford's initial contact with the decoy, Sequoia, who was posing as a 13-year-old, was unsettling from the start. He announced his real age, 46, almost immediately, and that didn't slow him down at all. In less than 2 hours, Wolford went from testing the water online to putting himself behind the wheel and driving straight to the sting house. For Wolford, it was as if the decoy's age and the prospect of being home alone while her mother was supposedly away at a meeting just set the whole plan in motion. He arrived at the house, not wasting time, and made casual compliments about the house and pool. The decoy, trained for this, pressed him with uncomfortable questions. Wolford didn't shy away. Instead, he was eager, answering with barely concealed excitement. It was almost a routine for him. But it was anything but routine for Hansen and the investigators, given what they knew about Wolford's extensive history. When Chris Hansen appeared and coolly invited him to make himself at home, Wolford appeared visibly rattled. He was questioned directly, his age, his intentions. It quickly got awkward when Wolford suddenly brought up Christianity in the middle of Hansen's grilling, as if clinging for some moral anchor.
Now, the other problem with your Good Samaritan story is that that was not the discussion you had when you first came in here.
Whether it adds up or not, God is my Savior. That is the truth.
Wolford wasn't just another name in the ledger. He was a repeat offender, already known for chat logs stuffed with graphic talk, attempts to meet kids, sending indecent materials, and trying to arrange real-world encounters.
No, it's definitely not right. Somebody your age going over to a 13-year-old girl's house.
I truly don't know why I was so stupid.
And the sting caught everything on record. Senior citizen targets teen. Michael Gentile's story is unforgivable, not just for his age, 64, easily one of the oldest caught on the show, but for the chilling layers to his behavior once he engaged with a decoy who'd claimed to be a young teenager. Gentile, a limo driver by trade, brings a level of persistence and shamelessness that's almost cinematic in how it escalates. There's the first contact over a messaging app marked by a weird, heavy breathing voice that landed instantly on the wrong side of unsettling. Then comes a flood of images, each one pushing normal boundaries further out. Gentile photographed in the woods, in his home, even on the toilet, all sent to the supposed girl with no hint of embarrassment. This wasn't just about showing off. He wanted to lure the decoy to join his world, suggesting she try sleeping without clothes at night and pressuring her to go with him to a get-together.
That is child. There's a varying degree of what their intent is, what their actions are, and what they plan to do.
What makes his story so disturbing is how he moved the conversation into real life, using the phone to send not just messages, but a string of calls and voicemails, each one using that same breathy, almost lover-like tone while laying out graphic requests to the decoy. Beyond his words, there's a strange mix of entitlement and performance. A man who thought nothing of calling her his kitten, or spelling out scenarios he wanted her to play out. Gentile's approach wasn't impulsive. He kept it up for around a month, slowly building an atmosphere that was equal parts seduction and manipulation.
How are you, sweetheart? I can't wait to kiss you and hold you. I love you, sweetheart. My little angel, I love you, baby, so much.
He asked her to practice explicit acts using fruit to send back, and even pushed links to videos that demonstrated behaviors he wanted her to try. The explicitness didn't let up, even when planning their first meeting. Gentile made the 30-plus mile trip to see her, tried to help her with mundane household tasks, and, sensing something off, tried to back out before getting ambushed by the police right outside.
So we know you were here to meet somebody. You said she was 13. You're old enough to be her grandfather?
You are a parent's worst nightmare.
So sit there and think about that for the next 3 days while you're in the jail cell.
Gentile never met the show's host or got a televised confrontation. His exit was swift, but the digital trail he left says it all. Level 7. And Predator. Corey Smith's story is filled with details that are hard to look away from. He surfaced in Montgomery County, Ohio sting operation. Smith was 39 at the time investigators caught him messaging what he thought was a 15-year-old girl. The chats weren't vague. He asked if the decoy was a virgin.
We have a man coming over, a 30-year-old,
Yes.
who wants to hook up with a 15-year-old girl.
Yes.
And he may have a criminal history.
When he arrived at the sting house, Smith pointed out that the girl didn't match her photos, with the decoy deflecting it away as the result of heavy photo filters. It was so brazen that just 15 days after being caught in this sting, Smith got picked up again, this time in a hotel room, for another attempt to meet with someone he believed to be underage. But this time, he took the missing underage girl and kept her in his hotel room.
Is there anybody else in the room with you?
No, sir.
Okay, there's no 14-year-old girl staying in your room?
No.
The charges Smith faced go far beyond what most sting operations reveal. The exchanges demonstrated Smith's calculating strategy as he pushed for direct responses, made audacious statements about himself, and encouraged possible victims to meet in person. Smith was ultimately charged with a litany of offenses, including 3 counts of various types of harm, felony conduct involving both physical and object violation, and forceful acts. Hansen and the investigators were extremely concerned about Smith's rapid return to online chats, setting up meetings, and ignoring the truth of his circumstances. Predator who brought his friends to the sting house. The encounter with Maroof Shah Farouk in Long Beach, California sits near the top of the To Catch a Predator Hall of Shame for its disturbing details. Farouk, at just 24, joined a decoy chat thinking he'd found a 12-year-old girl on the other side of the screen. His messages are legendary for their broken English. Telling lines, Farouk tries to convince the girl that what he's planning will somehow protect her, suggesting a graphic act so she wouldn't get pregnant. What sets Farouk apart isn't just the chat, it's who he brought with him. The planned meeting was a literal convoy. Maroof shows up at the trap house with 2 others. One was 15, intended to go inside first as a spotter, checking if the house was wired or crawling with cops, before signaling the all clear. If everything went smoothly, it's clear Farouk expected things to go further. The teenager, acting nervous, stumbles into Chris Hansen and claims he's not there for anything more than a look, blaming the fact he already has a girlfriend for his reluctance to participate. It's a surreal moment. The spotter is caught.
Hey, how you doing? You have a seat right over there on that stool right there. Are those your friends outside?
We quickly realize that the young man, who we learn is just 15, doesn't seem to know what's going on.
Meanwhile, outside, Farouk and the second adult start acting suspiciously. And sensing that something is wrong, Farouk and his companion attempt to flee in their car, leaving the teen behind. But before they can escape, police officers move in and take them into custody. Authorities viewed the scenario as particularly serious due to the number of people involved and the apparent intent behind the meeting.
He was the one that masterminded this plan. The other 2 individuals didn't really know everything that was going on. They knew they were going to meet a girl.
That's it for today's video, but if you're still in the mood for more of this kind of content, check out this video where we go over the most disturbing MTV show's Iceberg.